Hello, I'm Carla Bush with the Minnesota Bankers Association, and I'm here with Ryan Swift from Everfi. Ryan, we often assume that others know what we know when it comes to financial literacy. And in my own house, we've learned this firsthand as we're helping our children, who are now young adults, learn about the ins and outs of bank accounts, budgeting, and credit cards. And we found that they're really not learning these things in school. And maybe this is where banks can and should step in. So let's talk about this. Can you tell me, Ryan, what's the current state of financial education in the US?
Thanks, Carla, and great question, really, and you nailed it right out of the gates there. It's what we found at Everfi is that financial education and teaching young people the core concepts and skills they need is often not taught in the classroom or around the dinner table at home. And so this is where we believe there's a huge opportunity for banks in Minnesota and really across the country to kind of step in and fill that void around these critical topics to help young people become better prepared to be good citizens and to make important financial decisions for themselves and for their future. The state of financial education across the country is not great. It's improving. Recently, I think it's Florida and Georgia and a few other states have passed laws to require high school students to take a one credit course in financial education. But I think they were the 13th and 14th states out of 50. So there's a ton of work left to be done. And what typically happens, Carla, is that most states will require that kids are learning financial education topics, but they don't put any funding or muscle behind it. And that just becomes an unfunded mandate. And it just makes it difficult for local school districts and communities to try to fill that gap. What often happens is you've got a social studies teacher who's been teaching for 25 or 30 years, and suddenly the superintendent says, "Hey, Carla, we need you to start teaching these kids about mortgages and interest rates and investing."
Right. So true. And I noticed Minnesota was not in one of those states that you mentioned.
Yeah.
The pandemic obviously has changed everything. Has it also, and how has it changed the importance of financial education?
Gosh, I think a lot of this people are pretty comfortable with and understand. The pandemic has been difficult for us all. I don't think there's from young kids in classrooms who's had to go to remote learning and Zooms to businesses trying to figure out how to serve their customers and their communities better through virtual environments where possible. The pandemic has been difficult for us all. The sad truth is that it's had its most disparate impact on low-income communities, communities of color, single-family households. And it's what we found and what the data is showing us is that it's never been more important to educate folks around core concepts of financial education. And I think a lot of people think about, okay, let's get middle and high school kids educated on this. But the reality is that consumers today, and specifically those in low-income communities and communities of color especially, they're still struggling more. So the pandemic has hit those communities harder than others. And the need and the desire for those folks to have access to good financial tools to help them begin planning and moving towards financial health and security has never been greater. The truth is, Carla, I've never spoken with anybody in my almost 15 years here at Everfi who says, "Oh, I'm fine with my money. I don't need to feel any more secure." It's a natural and sort of ingrained goal that we all feel. We all want to feel more comfortable with our finances. We all want to feel more secure. But the reality is that the pandemic has made the gap between the haves and the have-nots, that sort of income and wealth inequality gap, greater. And so folks that were at risk pre-pandemic are now at a greater risk. Folks that were living paycheck to paycheck are really at risk now. And I think it's super important for financial institutions to be able to provide their customers and communities, and truthfully their own colleagues as well, with good tools and resources to help folks get on the path towards improving their financial health and security.
Absolutely. And you raised a good point there. And we talked about the younger demographics and the underbanked and the financially stressed. But really, is there a need for everyone? You made the comment that really stuck with me about nobody says I know exactly what I'm doing with my money.
Yeah.
Is there something out there for everyone?
Well, there is, and I think sometimes when we launched the business, 12, 13 years ago, there were a lot of banks that said, "Oh, well, we're serving kind of middle and upper class communities, so we don't really need financial education." And the reality is that's just incorrect. I think the idea is that someone has money, so that meaning that they know what to do with it, is just crazy, right? And you mentioned earlier in your intro that you see it with your own house, right? With your own young adults. And just because folks might be living a little bit more comfortably does not mean that they are lacking for the need here. Whether it's for smart financial planning, wealth transfer, smart investing, but even understanding the different things that are coming down the pike today. Cryptocurrencies, which is a huge issue. We hear it in our schools all the time. Kids are asking about it. And most people my age and younger are trying to figure it out. What does it mean? Is it something I should be getting into? Right. Yeah. So I think the truth is that regardless of your station in life, your age, your comfort and security level, there's always room for folks to learn a little bit more and help themselves make smarter decisions, especially today as we're now living in an economy that's sort of stagnant. There's high inflation, markets are tanking. There's a lot of folks that are 6 to 12 months ago were feeling comfortable that today aren't. So there's folks that are always looking to learn more. And I think it's important for us as a financial education company to provide content for folks, regardless of age, station, zip code, whatever it might be.
Absolutely. So as a banker, what's my incentive or what's my bank's incentive to build a financial education platform?
Well, I think today's consumers are asking for it now. When we launched Everfi in 2008, it was still sort of a new thing, right? Like there was a lot of bankers were volunteering in a classroom during Teach Children to Save Day. And there was some work being done in a volunteer capacity in communities. But what we're seeing today is that consumers are actually requiring more from their financial institution. And I think the simple fact is that banks that aren't able to provide good tools are going to miss out. This next generation of customers is pretty discerning. They have high expectations for not just financial institutions, but a lot of the places that they do business, right? And so what we're hearing now is that financial education for our banking partners is a great tool to build trust and loyalty with their customer base while helping folks navigate some of those difficult financial decisions. And today's customers are looking at their financial institutions and saying, listen, if you don't have things that can help me navigate these major life decisions over the next 5-10 years, I'm going to go someplace that will help me.
Thank you, Ryan. This was a great conversation. And I think something really, really important for all Minnesota bankers to be aware of and to look at implementing in their bank. Hey, did you know we're also committed at MBA to doing this? And we're doing it a little differently. We recently partnered with a TikTok influencer who happens to be a Minnesota high school teacher. And he's created for us a series of irreverent videos around financial topics. So I'll let you know when they're on our social media. Check them out. Again, thank you so much, Ryan. We're going to throw up a slide here after the conversation where you can learn more about what Everfi can do to help your bank around this important topic. Thank you so much, Ryan, and thanks everyone else for joining us.
Thanks, Carla. Appreciate it.